Do terrorists hate freedom? By the Southern Avenger. Whenever I talk about U.S. foreign intervention as the root cause of the current terrorist threat, I expect a certain reaction from those who instead believe the George W. Bush party line, that terrorists' only motive is hatred for America's freedom. Or as one listener wrote, quote, "I love you, dude, but I must respectfully disagree. These terrorist organizations want Americans dead because they are jealous of our freedom and prosperity." This opinion isn't unreasonable given the muddled views typically offered on the subject. Liberals who pretend that Islam is entirely harmless do so at their own peril. Every Muslim is not a terrorist, but a significant portion of them are, and that portion is a force to be reckoned with. Said future London Mayor Boris Johnson after the terrorist bombings in 2005, quote, "It is time to reassert British values. That means disposing of the first taboo and accepting that the problem is Islam. Islam is the problem." Johnson is correct. Decades of mass immigration into Europe has proven multicultural assumptions about Muslim assimilation dead wrong. And in places like the UK, France, and elsewhere, majorities now believe that Islam is simply incompatible with Western society. To say this is offensive to some, particularly when we all have Islamic friends or neighbors who are decent, law-abiding citizens. But the same could be said of relatives of mine who, as Southern Baptists, are the salt of the earth. Yet does anyone believe that if 2 million Southern Baptists planted roots in the heart of liberal San Francisco, that their presence would not create serious religious, political, and cultural tension? The same is true of Islam in Europe. It is a question of numbers and a recognition of the limits of tolerance, particularly when those you tolerate refuse to return the favor and, unlike Southern Baptists, won't hesitate to return fire. Yet conservatives who assume our wars in the Middle East might help to reduce terrorism are wrong in the worst way imaginable. According to the most comprehensive intelligence, the overwhelming reason for the terrorist threat against America is continued mass military presence and intervention by the U.S. in the Islamic world. Radical Islam has declared jihad against the U.S. for the same reason they have done so against their European neighbors, because we are there. Whereas Europe foolishly allowed Islam to enter their own backyard, the U.S. has not only been having a backyard barbecue in the Middle East for decades. In 2003, President Bush decided to bring out the fireworks. The invasion of Iraq alone exploded the ranks of Al-Qaeda and was the best possible gift the U.S. could have given radical Islam. Says Osama bin Laden to Bush, "Thank you." Imagine if the Iranian Revolutionary Guard invaded Folly Beach, established and maintained permanent military bases along the coast, and caused the deaths of thousands of South Carolinians by denying medical care through sanctions in an effort to punish Governor Mark Sanford. Every redneck from Goose Creek to Gaffney would be picking up shotguns, creating an insurgency that would trouble their occupiers to no end. And no doubt, back home, Iranian leaders would explain that the resistance in South Carolina was the work of terrorists who simply hated Islam. The childlike view that terrorists simply hate our freedom is constantly reinforced by too many political leaders, but also by a mainstream media more comfortable with repeating accepted falsehoods than doing their job of investigating the facts. The earth has never been flat, but someone had to investigate the matter and advertise the evidence in order to challenge the conventional wisdom. Still, the earth looks flat, right? Islam looks dangerous, right? The rhetorical navel gazing that passes for U.S. foreign policy has confused and corrupted not only American debate on the subject, but the American right, where military action is now almost always considered an inherent good despite the wisdom and results of its use. It is troubling that so many self-described conservatives now seem to trust their government without question so long as it involves bombs and bombast. The left's assumption that American imperialism, not some abstract hatred of freedom, causes Islamic terror is essentially correct. John McCain's freedom to express that he doesn't mind keeping troops in Iraq for 100 years won't enrage and encourage generations of potential terrorists half as much as the fact that he might actually do it. The right's assumption that Islam poses a danger is also essentially correct. But this danger is only born of geography, not an inevitable clash of philosophies, and where Muslim populations exist makes all the difference in the world, literally. Like a flame to gasoline, the Middle East and the West only become combustible when they meet. It's time we stopped meeting, and to quote Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire, but we can end it. For more commentaries, log into southernavenger.com, read my weekly column in the Charleston City paper, or listen here each Tuesday and Friday to the Southern Avenger, only on 1250 WTMA.